Hi Claire.
Hiya.
So here we are again for another Wellness Wednesday, and we've got Claire Williams from Your Soul Energy, who I found several years ago when I needed a little bit of help, but now I class you as a good friend, an absolute legend, and does all kind of amazing stuff, which I wanted to talk to you about because not only does it help me personally, but I think it can help a lot of my clients. So first things first, I found you when I went on Google. I was having a bit of a tough time emotionally. God only knows what I typed in to find you, but there you popped up. And I've just found, well, anyone that knows me will know I'm a chronic overworker. I don't really deal with emotions full stop, and very rarely deal with any of that stuff. But going to see you has been like plugging myself into the wall. Like, I come out feeling energized, and you're an absolute angel. I love it. So I just thought, I talk a lot to clients about eating well, drinking, exercising, but you can do all those things and you can still have blockages. You can still have reasons that you get stuck and you're not progressing. And I'm so open to looking at alternative methods and things. So I really wanted to talk to you to get this lesser known, kind of approach out there, to see what we can do. So first of all, Claire, I don't want to put you on the spot, but can you just tell us a little bit about what you call yourself and what you do? Because you've got a lot of strings to your bow, haven't you?
I do. Okay, so I suppose I really now class myself as an emotional well-being coach and energy worker stroke healer. So I work two ways, with the energy field and also the emotions. And that's really important, because if we only work with the emotions, we kind of dig the stuff up, we release it, but the patterns of how we got there stay stuck in the energy. So it's good to get the energy out as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't even understand an awful lot of it. When I come and see you, I don't actually know entirely what you do, although I class myself as spiritual, and I'm every day's a school day. But there's no doubt about it, it works. I get myself really stuck at times, and the only way that I've ever found to move forward with certain things is, Reiki, energy healing, all of this kind of thing. So our skill set overlaps quite a bit, because when you don't deal with certain energy and emotions, it can spill over into undesirable behaviours. Lots of us drink alcohol just to turn the brain off, or eat things that aren't conducive to a good diet because we're trying to seek some kind of calm, soothing, etc., etc. So I touch a lot upon that a lot with clients, but you do whole programs dedicated to that, so you are really authority on it. So can we just start at the beginning and tell us, what is energy? Like, how does it even work?
Okay, so you might remember from physics or science lessons that basically everything is energy. The
Yes.
table, the chairs, the crystals, the trees, us. And what you'll find is that we are the most manifested part. So our physical self is our most manifested part of our energy field. But our emotions are energetic, our thoughts are energetic, our beliefs are energetic. And some of our beliefs, already said that. So there's various different areas that, as we come down through our energy field, also called the aura, we become more and more condensed. And this can mean that, for instance, when you struggle with something like anxiety, that you will feel that very, very closely. It's very, very strong sensation, because it's really close to the body, and the thoughts are slightly further out. And then you'll have like the, how to describe it, as we come further out, we're going into the more etheric realms, the more spiritual, the more sort of the layers that aren't so tangible to us, but the emotions are very tangible. The thoughts are very much in our heads, but we are the most manifested part of all of that energy. And if we can start to be with the energy, notice how we feel, then we start to become aware of ourselves as a whole person, rather than just the body and the mind. And they're not separate. It's a body mind. So what we think affects our body, how we feel affects our body, and it affects the mind, and back and go. It's like a relay system. So it's constantly feeding back to us, but we're not always aware of what that means, because the energy and the emotions don't necessarily say, I'm feeling lonely, because sometimes what's happened is we've got used to squishing those feelings, and we'll go to the cupboard. And I know historically I was terrible for standing in the cupboard. Where's the chocolate? Where are the biscuits? That would be my go-to. And it's only by working with my energy and my emotions that I've been able to untangle all of that mess, so that I can recognize, actually, I'm just lonely. I need to reach out to a friend, before straight away in the cupboard, that would be where I would go. And it becomes this feedback loop that if we don't kind of stop and pause, it just runs our lives without us even being aware of it. And this is what gets in the way of our goals. It's what sabotages us for all the things that we want to achieve in our life, not just diet and health, but everything. If we don't take care of what's sitting underneath us, then that starts to get in the way. Now, I realise I've gone off on a bit. Did I actually answer the question?
You did. It's such a big topic, isn't it?
Yes.
It's a huge topic. And I thought I'd start asking about the basic energy, because you have to be quite open-minded if you're new to this. It's like, I know that wind exists. I know that electricity exists. I can't see any of it though, but such is the effect that I'm sitting here in light and all the rest of it. And energy and all of this stuff is all around us. And as you mentioned, anxiety, that's a huge thing, isn't it? That's I think it's one of the most Googled things that people seek help with. And potentially we could, I mean, obviously there's lots of reasons, but we could trace that back to past trauma, stuck energy, unprocessed emotions. I mean, I suspect that my problem when I came to see you was not dealing with emotions. I always used to say, I don't have emotions, and joke, and never really cried, never dealt with anything. The consequence of that is that somewhere everything got all jacked up. And it shows itself in, you know, anxiety, depression, lots of other ways where you're not processing it. I mean, my understanding of it, and it's quite basic compared to your understanding, but emotions are there to help us, to keep us safe, to protect us, to alert us. But if you're not processing them in the right way, you can quickly become overwhelmed by it. That feeling of overwhelm and dis-ease, you're then potentially treating with, as I say, self-soothing with biscuits, chocolate, wine, whatever it might be. And you can end up just in this loop of being stuck and never really moving forward. So what might somebody, how do we even recognize if we're stuck in this situation? What might a client come to you and say? How do we know?
How do we know? Yeah. So often what I find with clients is they're either struggling with anxiety, or it's overwhelm and they just can't get a handle on anything. Everything feels too much. They feel really tearful, really emotional. They can't handle one more thing. And yet they kind of look at their lives and say, well, I should be able to manage it. But the truth is, what you have managing at the moment, what feels good and manageable, is not the same as your actual resilience. So where you will have been coping, say, for years and years at this kind of level, you know, the kids and the work and, you know, all of the things, the house renovations, there's so many things that people expect of themselves. And yet when that creeps up too much, and then you add in stress, and say you add in financial problems, and say you add in health problems or worry about a loved one, instantly your resilience is dropping, your stress levels are increasing, and so you can't really feel what you're supposed to feel. Your emotions are a signpost, but they only really work as a clear signpost when you can be present to them. And most of the time we can't be present because we're too busy doing, too busy trying to solve problems, too busy trying to do our very best and be what we need to be for everybody. We don't have time for ourselves. And when we can have time for ourselves to stop, to pause, to be present, to just kind of recognize, what am I feeling? Okay, why am I feeling this? What is it that's tipped me over the edge? And then seeking the actions that would then start to soothe that down so that you can be back to your normal self again, or at least your more resilient self. It can be really hard to find your pathway, but it takes one step. And it's always about, I mean, you'll hear this everywhere: pause, breathe. And it's great to hear that, but what does that actually mean when you're doing it? Because I know when I used to be in my head all the time, what do you mean emotions? I just cry a lot. That's what I used to think. I just cry a lot. I don't have emotions. I just cry. And actually, the reality was I was so full up that there was no space for me to compute anything else at all. And so every time something happened, I would be tearful or I would be angry. I used to flip between the two. And it was, when I look back now, I think it was such a stressful time, but I can see it was a stressful time, but I wasn't handling it well because I didn't know how. So to take the breath, to pause, and then ask yourself, what is it I need right now? Because the truth is, you don't need that bar of chocolate. Part of your brain thinks you do because that's what helps you feel better normally. But if you ask your stomach, does it want something else to eat? Invariably it goes, no, thanks. I'm just trying to digest what I've got. Often what we need is space, peace, connection, love, rest, sleep. There's just so many parts to us that we ignore in order to be in our modern life and just to keep going.
Connection's a really interesting one, actually, because sitting there on the sofa, by the time the evening rolls around, 9 times out of 10, you're so tired you can barely hold a conversation with your partner. You're scrolling on the phone, just brain rot, just to try and turn everything off. And all you want to do is feel at peace. And obviously eating things like chocolate, drinking wine, it does help to kind of soothe you. If there's any problems in a relationship or you're lonely, it kind of, that's not a nice feeling, is it? So having things like alcohol, food, whatever, it stops you feeling your feelings temporarily. And that's what I was always doing. I didn't realize I was doing that. So I was the opposite to you. You were emotional. I never felt anything. I think I was dead inside, but I found that quite comfortable, not dealing with anything pleasant, until it all bit me on the backside a few years ago. So I'm trying to go the other way now. I'm trying to, if I feel a certain way, trying to accept that and say, well, that's fine, because and understand it. It's it's not an easy thing to do. So if you're like me and you don't really know how to deal with things, because no one gives you a blinking book when you're born and goes, right, this is what you got to do. If anyone is finding themselves stuck and they don't really know where to go, how might you deal with that? You've got lots of interesting modalities, might we call it. You've done a lot of courses, a lot of qualifications, and things that I've never even heard of. I know about NLP because I'm doing that myself, but talk to everyone about things like the EFT, the NLP, the matrix stuff. Just give us a few little ways of how you might be able to help someone.
Okay, so if I talk about them as modalities, because I tend to mix them up and work with whatever the client needs. That's what most of us do, isn't it? That's what you do as a good coach. So EFT, emotional freedom technique. People will have heard it possibly is called tapping, where you literally just tap on the meridian endpoints. This is a brilliant modality, and I actually it changed my life. So Reiki changed my life and took me on a path of energy and things. But EFT changed my life. It helped me be present to who I was so much more. So EFT, basically, as it says, emotional freedom technique, by tapping on meridian endpoints, and there's tons of science to back this up now. This isn't a woo-woo thing anymore. This is a credible modality. And what you do is you're just tapping on the meridian endpoints, literally doing what I'm doing, various places, and as you're tapping, there is a rhythm to the tapping which soothes the HPA axis, and the fight, flight, freeze response, or fight, flight, freeze, fawn, because a lot of us do the people pleasing when we're in a tight space, and fawn is now coming into this kind of avenue of descriptors. And so by tapping, you're literally releasing the energy, you're soothing the nervous system. And what can then happen is, particularly if we add in words or good breath work, we then unhook what that problem was starting to mean to us. So we have the situation, say for instance, let's just go simple. Kids are driving us mad. We've had a really stressful day at work and we just tapped on that. Say we just tapped on that. Really busy day, really stressful day. Oh my God, that happened and this happened and da-da-da. One of my clients used to call it tapping on the crap. It was just her way of saying, let's just get it out of the way. And all you're doing is you're releasing everything down. And then because you're naming it while you're tapping, you're taking the energetic charge out of it. So it works on an energy basis, but your stress levels come down, your cortisol comes down, your fight, flight, freeze, fawn response can shut back down, and your thinking brain can open back up again. And when you can think again, you're more resourceful, you're more rational, you're generally calmer because you're not responding from that stressed out place. And that's what EFT does in a really nice way. So you can apply that to how you feel right now. You can apply that to traumas from the past. You can apply it to phobias. There's all sorts of things that you can use it for. And it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. Matrix re-imprinting is one step on. And this was created by my EFT master, Carl Dawson. And it's something that just sort of created out of nowhere, one of his sessions with one of his clients. And what it is you're as you're tapping, you might remember that sometimes you see an earlier version of yourself. An EFT matrix is all about tapping on that earlier version of yourself. So you're almost imagining where you are. You're imagining you're tapping on them on the same points. Or as I'm doing now, you can kind of tap in the imagination, in the air. So they say there's my inner child, I'm just tapping on her. And we work with their energy, with their feelings, and you get tons of information from them. And you can find out the beliefs that underpin all the behaviors, and you're following the energy to, I say you're guided by someone like me to follow the energy so that you can really get the truth. You're not making it up, you're following the energetic pathway, which is laid down often when we're very small. But what you're doing is you're present to that younger version of you. You're desensitizing them. You're taking the trauma out of that moment, that whether it's a big T where something really serious happened, or a small T, which is something like mum shouted at you or didn't look at your picture, that kind of thing. I shouldn't be blaming mums all the time. It's not always at all.
Always our fault.
There's like, it's all cast across the whole way, and there's no blame either. And that's the other thing to point out, is that all of these therapies are all about compassion, because if we can't bring compassion for ourselves, we can't love ourselves back into wholeness and acceptance of who we are. We then can't be that out in the world either. It's all about solving what's going on in here, bringing love to what's going on in here, so that we can echo it out into the world, which of course in its own way is a very, very spiritual thing to do. But with the matrix, you're caring for your inner child, your younger self. And then what you're doing is you're finding that belief, you're working out what they need to, well, not even you're working out, you ask them, what is it you need to feel all of these lists of things that we're looking for, which is things like being seen, heard, appreciated, loved, safe, connected. And there's various other bits and pieces that you're kind of looking for that person, that younger version of you to become. And we find out what the belief is, install a better belief, the opposite belief, and then we re-imprint that through the whole system. So that's the body, the mind, the chakras, the energy out into the universe and back in again. And it's amazing. And you re-imprint that thing for like 21 days. And that makes such a difference to the nervous system, to the way that our brain's wired, because we're giving the brain an alternative pathway to what actually happened. And it doesn't matter that that's not what really happened. What matters is that we feel empowered again, that we feel loved again, that we feel seen and heard again, that we feel cared for. All of these things that we didn't get at that time, and we can give to ourselves in the now.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
It does. It's years of study on your behalf, and qualifications and courses and all of this kind of stuff. So I appreciate it's quite hard to get it all over in a short summary, but and there's going to be skeptics, because it's not as you say, with the tapping, there are, factually it's been kind of looked into and granted some scientific kudos, but there's other things that take a little bit more of an open mind. But when I've had sessions with you, I've been quite blown away about what you've been able to pick up on just through the energies and things. So I've had reflexology and things with you as well. And you've known physical things, like I've had a bad shoulder just through touching my feet. You've known if I'm maybe feeling unsettled, or you've picked up things in the heart space, grief and things that I've had at the time. You've picked up an awful lot about what I'm going through, not even through talking, just through understanding the auras, energies, and all of this what my partner would call witchcraft. In the
To be
nicest
fair,
possible way.
that is what a lot of people call it. But I feel
It is
like
a dream.
because I started in massage, and I started with massage, aromatherapy, all of those, the traditional holistic therapies, after being in an office, after being in retail, doing all of those kinds of normal jobs, as it were, muggle jobs, as I call them now, because I love a bit of Harry Potter. But what I found was, as I was massaging, that the energy, the body used to start talking to me. And this is where it sounds mad, and I get that.
I love it.
But I was working so much on myself that I was able to clear enough of my energy field to start to hear what was going on in other people's fields. And because I was open and I wanted to know, what is it? So like I was working on a client, and they'd got a new car, and it turned out, because they came to me and said, my calf's really giving me a lot of bother. I was like, okay, let's massage the calf. And as we're massaging the calf, it's going, I don't like this new car, I don't like the way they're driving it, etc.
Really?
And I was just like, this is fascinating. And he was like, they were my first person where the body really started to speak in quite a strong way. And from then on, I just started to ask more and more. What is it you need? What is it you're missing? What would help you? What are you feeling? Particularly the feelings, because that's my signpost. Some psychics can see colors and pictures and stuff. I tend to get the feelings that come up, and I think because that's more comfortable for me. I quite like working with emotions. It's what we call my zone of genius, as it were. I really enjoy that. I can be present to that. And from there, it became really obvious in 2015 to just literally leave most of the physical stuff and really ramp up what I was doing with the energetic work on myself, on others, etc. And so that's kind of when I moved into the, as it's called, the Your Soul Energy. It was all about the person, their energy, and realigning them with their happiness, their soul, their life path, where they want to be, making sure that they feel aligned so that they can go and do what they're supposed to be here to do in the world. Because we're all here to do something. And my part in that is helping them re-navigate that.
I often think to myself, so I know depression, anxiety, personality disorders, learning difficulty, I get all of that is a genuine thing. Not for a minute would I suggest someone stops taking medication. But I often wonder how many of the people that have been diagnosed with personality disorders, anxiety, all these things you just mentioned, could there be just some of those that don't have a chemical imbalance, but they have got trauma from the past they haven't dealt with? So they are acting and behaving in a way that they don't understand because potentially things haven't been dealt with before. I often wonder that because people have never taken more pharmaceuticals to help with all of these situations. And so many people that I know that take them, when things get traced back, you know, potentially there's been horrific things gone on in childhood, that abuse, things that haven't been processed, and that really does change your trajectory as a person, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I can't comment about the personality disorders or anything like that because I'm not trained in psychiatry. But I wonder the same thing is how many people, because I will tend to see people who struggle more with the anxiety or the food issues, those sorts of things, rather than the other more serious things, for which on one level I'm really thankful for, but on another level I do wonder the same thing as you, where if you trace that back, what if, especially with personality disorders, what if you think about how many versions of our within us of ourselves, the one that fights for the right for something. I mean, you think of the mama bear. So when you have kids, all of a sudden you find this version of yourself that might not have existed before, that's willing to fight for something really quite no challenge at all, will do that. You know, nothing has to nothing will get in the way of that fight. And then you'll have the other sides of you that might be sort of, as I say, the people pleasing aspect can come up quite a lot. So there's different facets of each of us. And what if what someone's gone through can blow that on beyond what we would have in a normal day-to-day life into the next level, into something that's labeled and something that has to be medicated, etc.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I do wonder.
I'm not suggesting for a minute people come off meds or
No.
shun traditional medicine, because these things are all genuine, real problems. But if somebody's been fighting their whole life, they've had a crap upbringing, for want of a better word, they've had a hard time, everything's been against them, they've fought their whole life. If they've been struggling like that, what's to say that maybe they haven't got aggressive issues? That's just how they've kind of become.
That's how they stay safe. That's how they
That's
stay
become
alive.
now a coping mechanism, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's one thing that's really important that I'm sure, I know you know this, but it might be worth spelling out again, is that sabotage isn't really, it's not trying to go against you. It's your subconscious and the strategies that your subconscious has learned in order to keep you safe, to keep you happy. And of course, we might go, why on earth did I eat that? Why on earth did I drink that? Why did I not go to the gym? And the saboteur will be coming in, particularly if we're feeling stressed, because it just wants to make us feel better. And what we're used to is the safe place. And when we're moving towards something better, the person that we're trying to become, and with your line of work, you're looking at the fitness goals, the health goals. And if we're trying to head towards that direction, that feels uncomfortable for the subconscious, because what hasn't happened is an alternative strategy needs to be put in place. And when you have an alternative strategy, then the subconscious goes, well, it's all right if I let go of the chocolate or the wine or whatever the behavior is, because I've got this other way of taking care of me. I've got 5 or 6 other ways of looking after what I need. And so maybe that's okay. So I could let that go. And that's the problem, is often the saboteur is kind of labeled as the bad thing, and we should be able to have willpower to get past it. And actually willpower just fades in the face of like stress and tiredness and hunger and a couple of other things. It's like it just disappears. And really what we need is to stop labeling the sabotaging part of ourselves as something bad, and just speak to it and ask it, come on, what could we do that could be different? Because I really don't want that behavior anymore. That behavior makes me feel sad. It makes me feel uncomfortable, makes me feel fat. It makes me feel ... Just going to where it does make you feel. And then your subconscious and that part within you will actually recalibrate and will start to work with you if you can be present enough. And a lot of this, to be fair, a lot of this is guidance work, but when you get good at it, you can do it yourself. So it's not like a closed shop. It's just a case of practice. Definitely it's practice, but knowing that it's not there to harm you, it's trying to save you. You just need to give it different strategies.
This is why I did, I've recently been doing the NLP and lots of other courses. So I started off doing personal training. Cool, love it, really good. Really, really love that side of my job. And then later requalified doing the nutrition qualifications. But something that kept coming up time and time again is, I don't know why I do X, Y, and Z. And I can relate, there's all been times that you'll have an absolute blowout. And it's almost like you've disengaged your brain. You're just eating, or even the opposite, not eating, going a huge amount of time.
Yeah.
And you think to yourself, why did I do that? What's wrong with me? It goes against every logical part of your brain and what you're trying to achieve. And that's where I'm spending a lot of my time at the moment, because I honestly feel if we can unpick all of that, people call it being in the zone. But once you're at ease with all that, you understand it, and the inner work is done. It's easy, isn't it? It's easy. I don't spend hardly any time thinking about eating healthy or doing these things, because I understand it and I've done the inner work. Whereas when I didn't understand how my brain was firing and unprocessed problems, I just got myself stuck in a loop of doing everything wrong against my goals. Why did you do that? You're useless. Start again. It's like a blinking merry-go-round. So I love talking about this kind of thing, because I think it's so interesting, not only for my own self-development, but for clients as well. So when I am chatting to people and they say, I had 2 bottles of wine and a Domino's and a this and a that, I don't know what came over me. I'm in a position now to kind of explore that.
So, and remember, of course, if you have alcohol, then your inhibitions go anyway. Your common sense kind of goes out the window anyway. And not to say at any point don't drink, because ultimately we become so strict with ourselves otherwise, and the shoulds get in the way of what is possible. And if we can start to think of what's possible for me, what's doable for me, what would feel really good to me to do, to be, then if we start to look towards that, then we're also forward focusing rather than bashing ourselves all the time.
100%. I mean, we've both got different methods of dealing with this particular thing. So I deal with it with one-to-one coaching, weekly coaching calls. I'm quite pragmatic in my approach, quite practical. You've actually got...
know.
Yes, I do PT, Claire, as well, so you know about this. You deal with it in a very different approach. You've got a whole program called, Sweet Tooth Breakthrough and emotional freedom from emotional eating. So we have different methods, but with treating for the same principle. So anyone watching this who's feeling stuck, you have to kind of look into, have a little research and see what speaks to you, what is the right method for you. There's no right or wrong. Everyone responds differently to different things. So if somebody wanted to know a little bit more about what you do, about these programs, tell us a little bit about the program, and where they can find out information on that.
Okay.
So everyone knows they can find me because this is on the page. What about your good self?
Right. So, excuse me, with the frog in the throat. So the freedom from emotional eating, I used to do as a shorter course. And I found that actually what was needed, and I also learned this from myself as well as clients, was something that went over a longer journey. So that is a program that takes about 18 months. And we take that long because it takes that long for all the triggers. And I say all the triggers with a massive caveat that it's not all the triggers, but what you'll find is it's most of them. And by the end of the course, you are able to deal with what comes up because you are in a resourceful place. So with the freedom from emotional eating, I kind of combine my energy work, the matrix stuff, the NLP stuff, the hypno stuff, the EFT stuff. I combine all of that with the energy work because it really needs what I found is it needs the two-pronged attack. We can work with the subconscious on one side, which is absolutely necessary. And then the added piece, which seems to make such a difference and quickly, is the energy work on top of that. So each session is split into two pieces. And the energy work is the part that actually a lot of my clients get to love because they can literally just stop worrying about what's going on in their head, stop thinking about anything, lay down on the couch. And then this is where it gets woo-woo. And we have crystals and we have like light codes and all sorts of big energy magic, which ultimately, when you get up from the couch, you feel so much better that it doesn't matter what it was. It's just enjoy it, just relax. So that program, as I say, goes on for 1.5 years. It has lots of sensible resources like noticing emotional hunger from real hunger. It gives you trackers that you can use to work on what you're noticing within yourself, your trigger times, and working out strategies. There's all sorts of those sorts of things. But ultimately, it's the one-to-one work that we would do together, where I work with you on what's coming up for you around literally your goals, but towards your health and getting away from food being your soothing tool. And the one thing that is really important to know is that emotional eating is never really about food. It's about what we've made the food mean. And that's really important because the food has gone from being fuel into being, this is how mum shows she loves me. This is how dad gives me a treat. Oh, granny used to make me these. And at Christmas, we used to do this, etc. And it's layered upon layered upon layered. And then, of course, we repeat these patterns as an adult and we do them for ourselves like, oh, treat food, goody, let's get all the chocolates and the mince pies. And it's like, at what point did your body ever go, yes, please, I'd love a whole tub of those? It just doesn't, does it?
Yeah.
But it's not about taking that away from you. It's about actually giving you, basically, you'd be treating the food as fuel and food rather than comfort and memories and connection and everything that you've made it mean. So that's the big program, which is, that's deep work. And I will be honest and say it's not everyone's cup of tea because you have to be brave enough to want to know about you. And the upside to that is that you get to know about yourself. You get to know how to look after yourself properly. I teach you all sorts of energy strategies that help you talk to your body and find out what it needs, what would support it more. And they're really fun. So I would also say that That program, although it sounds serious and deep, we do have a lot of fun because naturally I'm quite a playful person. So I don't like to be stuck in the mire of the deep emotions. I want to get you through them and out of them and into the better place much more quickly than, say, traditional methods would have it. And then the other side to that, which is for those who don't emotional eat, and I really have to say this strongly, is the sweet tooth breakthrough session. Now, this is like an intense 4-hour session where we do all sorts of modalities. And basically we break your connection to sweet foods. But if you are thinking about doing this and this sounds like amazing for you, then that's fabulous. But please don't be using food as sugar as a day-to-day soother. It needs to be more like something you have at the end of the day and you don't even know why you do that. It's time to get rid of that habit. It's not something you do all the time. The all the time is the emotional eating part. This is just breaking that craving so that you can get a head start. The sugar doesn't want to be in your system anymore. We take care of sort of several events or versions of you in your younger years that might be triggering this behavior, but it's not as in depth as the other version. So this one is literally for those who are like, what is wrong with me? I can do everything else. I'm totally focused, but why do I keep eating whatever I eat at the end of the day? Now, I say this is the sweet tooth breakthrough session. If you do it with crisps, it's the same thing. I can do it with the crisps as well. It doesn't have to be limited to sugar, but it's about not emotional eating. It's about, this is a rubbish habit I've got myself into and it's time to break out of it. That's the session for that one.
Interesting.
Hopefully there's clarity there. If you want to find that information out, it's on my website, which is www.yoursoulenergy.uk, but there'll be links that we can post in with that.
Yeah, I'll make sure we put those at the bottom there. There's lots out there, isn't there, to think about. And people may think, why do I someone asked me this today actually, why do I talk to people on my podcast, videocasts, whatever these are called, that do a similar job to me? And the honest truth is because going through this self-development myself, losing weight, I used to be the biggest sugar muncher, drinking too much. I'm honestly the greediest person. I've had to do so much work. It's literally changed my life. And I do this job because I thoroughly enjoy helping other people do the same thing. And whether they choose to use me to help them or they choose to use you or someone else, honestly, sadly, there is enough of a problem out there for clients to find the right person that they feel is going to best suit themselves. So the reason I'm always actively encouraging people, you don't have to have PT with me, you can have PT with anyone or see whoever you like. It's just, I feel that I've got a message to share. And when I started to go down a more spiritual path, it took me out quite a dark place. So I feel it's something that I want to share. So there's no vested interest in this. There's no kind of kickbacks. I go and see Claire, I pay her what she charges, she comes to see me, and we're all doing the same job, aren't we, to help people, just in different capacities. So all I'd say is if anyone is struggling, have a little look into it. Jump on YouTube if you're not quite sure about approaching Claire just yet. Look at the EFT, look at the thing. If you think that is a little bit of you and it can help you, then Claire would teach you properly. But if you want to just know what it's all about, it's life-changing stuff.
Yeah, it is.
And
definitely
really no need to kind of just plod along. The tragedy is when people never take action about anything and they spend 10, 20, 30, 40 years unhappy. That's the worst bit. So
absolutely.
So anything else you would like to add, Claire?
Loads.
Forever.
So I would say on my website I do have a resources page which has got tons of free resources. It's got, if you like tapping, it's got tapping scripts. Some of them are about weight, some of them are about scales. There's various things on there. There's also meditative pieces. There's energy practices, but there's quite a lot of tapping because, as I say, that was the thing that massively changed my life, without a shadow of a doubt, with the matrix part. Also, if you were wanting to try something with me, but not with me, if that makes sense, if you go to my subscribe page on my website there, and you sign up that way, and you can unsubscribe whenever you want to. But there's a EFT video there, and it's literally silent tapping, just using the breath. And it's really good to use when you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed, or anything that's bringing you out of your comfort zone. And you can follow. So it's like a 3-part video. The first video basically explains what tapping is, why we're doing it, that kind of thing. Then we do the actual practice together. So the second video is the one that you can keep coming back to. And then the third video just asks you to recognize how you were before, what you've noticed now, what the difference is, and just keep repeating that, because if nothing else, then the tapping will bring your nervous system down. It will reduce your stress, which means you are more resilient, you're more capable, you're more clear-headed, you can think more straight. And there's just so many benefits to tapping and having a regular tapping practice that, well, I suppose I'm just trying to preach here because it's amazing and I don't actually want to preach. But I would suggest trying that if you didn't want to be, if you wanted to try it out with me, but without any having to have one-to-one type thing, which I totally get, because we all need that. I need to know what you're like first and whether or not I'm going to like that, and that's okay. Also, which I can send, I will pass Annabelle the link. I do a monthly meditation, not monthly meditation, I have a membership for meditation, and we meet weekly. We do something called a monthly cleanse and heal, which is a bit of the magic. But ultimately, the thing that we do weekly is a meditative practice where we're grounding, connecting with the body. We start to connect with the energies, the awareness. We might go on some kind of spiritual journey, which is really nice. You know, you might meet an animal or see a crystal or something. It's all just quite lovely and relaxing, and it helps you feel replenished, because that's one of my key things here is I want to take the burdens away. Let's let them go, and then let's bring the good stuff in, because if we can bring the good stuff in, you go away feeling 100% better. And isn't it better to not carry it around than to keep carrying it around? It makes no sense, because we've all done it. I know I did it for decades, and it was like finally I think I was early 40s before I started doing this serious work, and it's been a long time now. And it's kind of got to the point where I know if I didn't do this work, I would still be the state I was in, but worse, because I would be in that quagmire of stuckness. And when we feel stuck, we can't get out. It's really hard. So making that first step, whether it be reaching out to Annabelle, me, or somebody else entirely, that first step is actually the biggest but hardest step. So it's worth doing it for you, because no one else is going to do this for you. You have to do it for you. And that's where the empowerment comes in as well. And if we can help you be empowered, then fantastic, because ultimately we all need a little bit more of actual aligned empowerment rather than kind of dictator power, if you know what I mean. So we need that balance within ourselves. So yes, as I was saying, I've got a link for the meditation that we did on Tuesday, and I'm offering for a limited period, and I will discuss that with Annabelle, because this is literally off the top of my head at the moment. You can have like a month's free trial to my membership if you're willing to sign up by a certain date, but I'll sort that date out, because I'm going to be opening up the doors again in a few weeks. So I would imagine that it would be before those weeks had started, that if you joined us then you get the 3 months to try it, see what you think, and then if you don't like it, you don't like it, but you've got nothing to lose. But that's for those of you that are interested in the spiritual side, the connection with yourself, and maybe some more developmental awareness rather than one-to-one work. It's not about the one-to-one work, so it's very different ways of working. I think that's it. So much, sorry, so much in there.
You do a lot, and it's quite hard to kind of summarize your job title or what you do, because you do such a lot. You sort of treat the person as a whole. So I will put on the link your website, and people can reach out to you where possible. As you say, the first step, if you do decide that for whatever reason life isn't quite going right at the moment, very few of us in this country are brought up in a particularly spiritual way. Something usually happens to someone, and they discover this side of life. So for example, I got myself in a hole a few years ago, and where I would try anything, I think it might have been postnatal depression or something. There was something that went on. I can't remember what the trigger was, but I kind of came across all this stuff, and probably the same for you. And once you realize how much is out there, and you know, most of us are brought up to think, as you say, woo-woo, it's all nonsense and
Yeah.
snake oils and all the rest of it. But when you do something, be it a meditation, be it Reiki, something, you come out like a different person. It really opens up your eyes to this side of things. I think people these thousands of years ago that developed these practices, I think in some ways we've gone a bit backwards in modern
Yeah,
times.
we did the Newtonian science thing, didn't we, where we just look at the body and not even the whole body bits. So it's like the heart person and the lung person, etc. Or maybe they're probably the same, but we don't look at the whole person. And bearing in mind that the emotions have such an impact on how we feel within our bodies. You imagine, you think of a day where you're really struggling, and how does your body feel? It doesn't feel light and bouncy and ready to run. It's you're dragging it. Your shoulders might be rounded. You know, there's so many implications for how we feel on the body, let alone the mind. And then the energy system holds all of that, and we can start to clear the energy system out. Then the body can start to open back up again. You know, you can become more of yourself. Whereas if you're holding all of that old stuff that you don't need anymore, a lot of it's old story and a lot of the time we don't even know we've got the old story. It's just something we tell ourselves. And then when we bring awareness to the fact that there is a story, you kind of go, God, why am I telling myself that? And that's true, because what we could do instead is flip it around and go, what if I told myself something better? Because if I'm going to repeat something to myself, I should make it count rather than giving myself a hard time or judging myself as I look in the mirror, etc. There are so many things that we could be doing if we were just pause and be present enough. And of course, I'm not saying that I do this all the time. I really don't. I need to remind myself many times to just sit with the peace and the ease and allow that that potential energy, that divine energy, as I call it, universe energy, just to be present with me, because ultimately we are it and it is us. And the best way to live your life is happily, isn't it? And wouldn't we really want to be happy more frequently than we were miserable? But often we kind of have an emotional set point, and that's one of the things that you have to look to clear out. Is this could be, so like your emotional set point was sad or depressed. And that's where we go back to. So we pick ourselves up and then we go back to that. And it does take a little bit of work to lift that up. And that does take awareness and conscious adjustment. But there's loads of energy practices that sort that out as well. So it's like it just keeps giving. There's nothing not to like about energy. And ultimately there is science too that talks about the field of the heart. So there's something called the Heart Math Institute, which some have heard of and some haven't, but they have been measuring with scientific equipment. They can feel up to 20 meters away the frequency of the heart.
Oh, good Lord.
I know, which is bigger than the brain. The brain doesn't go as far, the heart goes further.
Wow.
So, and that's only because it can go further, they think, but they haven't got the equipment to measure the tiny little resonances there are further than 20 meters away.
Wow.
We are energy beings. It's just we keep forgetting that. We think that this is it. Yeah, this is ultimately it. But of course, take what you want to take with this and then leave what doesn't resonate with you at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I still don't even understand probably 5% of it. But what I do know is that I look after myself. I drink my water. I sleep very well. I do all the bits. I come and see you. Everything's fine. But then over a period of weeks, my brain ends up tangled like a series of bad Christmas lights. And I don't know why. And I don't know what to do to make it go knotted like that. But then you go and get some work done, have a nice nap at yours. the lights get untangled. I don't know what you do, but thank you for educating us or giving people an introduction into what else is out there, really. What else can help you. So thank you so much for coming to talk to us about all of this knowledge. I absolutely adore coming to see you. It's like a little piece of heaven in your
oh, bless you,
studio. So I'll put all the links on there. Thanks again, Claire. And
you're welcome, lovely.
Anything else you wanted to say before?
I don't think so. I really don't. I think we've covered so much. Probably people's brains are spinning. So maybe pull on your ears and let there be more space in your brain to process that. I know that's a weird one I learned from an energy lady.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much.
Oh,
And
you're welcome.
yeah, a pleasure as always.
Thank you.